So I'm going to do a super cringy webinar on scoring, just because it's so hard to get everyone in the same place at the same time. So apologies if this is really painful. But I just wanted to put it all online so that everyone can access it and find everything they need. So I'm going to talk about where to find the information that you need, just some general points about scoring just to keep in mind when you're doing the choreography, and then a little bit about rules and just some judges' kind of feedback. Cool. So scoring, some people have asked where to find the score sheet, so varsityallstar.com/scoring, very easy to find, always on there. Yeah, just make sure you always use the one on the website so you're using the most up-to-date version. And then if you click on scoring system, that will take you to the scoring system. So first thing to look at is quantities. So this is really important to know how many stunt groups you need, things like that. It's been reduced a lot in the past year or two, which makes things really easy, especially with a lot of our teams having 10 or 12 or exact numbers. It means we've got a little bit more flexibility here of how many groups we need doing each thing. And then the same quantity for tumbling. Majority, most, number of people in your team, pretty simple. Oops, that's quantities. Just make sure you always keep that in mind, especially if you have new people that come into your team or people leave. It does really make a difference, especially if you're sort of on the edge of one quantity. This chart here, none of our teams are co-ed, so it really doesn't matter. You can just completely ignore it, basically. Same with this whole section here. Not relevant. Cool. So I'll start with stunt difficulty. Most of you already know this, but I'm just going to explain everything just so I've said it. So all of our teams, hopefully, or at least by the end of the year, should be aiming around here. 4 different level appropriate skills performed by most of the team, 2 of which are elite level appropriate. So pretty simple, says most. And then say you have 12 in your team, go check here, most is 2 groups. Easy. Elite level appropriate skills. So where you find that is you can go back here, level appropriate examples. Say you're level 1, elite level appropriate skills. So you need 2 of these skills, pretty much. Same for level 4, same for every level, different options. So they have to be exactly those skills. It can't be more difficult, can't be easier, it has to be exactly those skills, and you can kind of put what variety you want on it, but it does have to be body position to body position. Yeah. Now, Tim mentioned somewhere at the AFSCF conference, they said that extended stunt means 2 foot. I don't know what that is referring to, because an extended stunt, a 1-leg stunt is still an extended stunt, but apparently extended stunt refers to 2 feet, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, so back to here. Most teams, yeah, should be aiming for the 2 elite level appropriate skills. Ideally you would want 3, because then you've sort of got an insurance policy. If one goes wrong, you're not going to drop into the mid-range. Keeping that in mind, another option would be, say you had 15 in your team or 14 in your team, you can easily make 3 stunt groups. So you could have 3 groups doing this, and then 1 group drops, you've still got your 2. So you would really, if your team is at the level that they are wanting to guarantee they get into the high range, you want to have an insurance policy in there. But obviously it's not really worth having an insurance policy stunt if it's very likely that it's not going to work, because it's, it's not worth it. So only if you're at that level, then you can be thinking about it. For stunt choreography, we sort of want it to be in, oh my god, I've talked for 5 minutes already. Okay, hurry up. an iterative process, so you don't want to go in there and be like, okay, this is my stunt sequence, I'm going to have 6 level appropriate skills and they're all going to be elite skills and we're going to get it straight away and we're going to compete it at the first competition. That's not realistic. If it is, that's awesome, but it's not really. So you want to have sort of a few different stunt sequences in mind. We usually have easy, medium, hard versions, and then they can progress through that throughout the year. They don't have to go straight to the hardest version, and it always keeps them motivated because there's always something more that they can add. If they can do the hard version, you can make it even harder. That also means that they're not just getting caught up in one skill, just working on that, and spending all their time on it. And they can actually just keep doing sequences. So for example, level 4, they've started working on their sequence, which is 1.5 up to prep, double down, ooh, screen's gone off, double down, switch up, tick, tick, pop up to arabesque, fall down. So in there's so many places that we can add in elite skills and we can make it harder. We can add in tick-tock to body position. We can add in twisting in the full up. We can make the 1.5 up to 1 lead prep level body position. After their tick, we can add a little inversion in there. So we've got lots of options for them. But just because they can't do the hardest skill doesn't mean they aren't practicing a sequence yet, which is really good. Okay, shut up and hurry up. Technique uniformity. So especially important with cradles, making sure across all of our teams that people are doing things the same way, whether it's level 1 or level 4, level 5 stunt groups. All should be the same, especially cradles, catching with arms in. So some people have said, oh, I'm not confident for them to catch with their arms in because the flyers feel like they need to catch themselves. Well, if you're not confident to do that, they shouldn't be doing cradles. They need to take a step back. Do waist level cradles or tosses or whatever. Okay, so have the back base hugging the side base and hugging the flyer, and flyer's arms in, toes pointed. The base that has their hand on the side of the flyer's head, so further up, has to be the main base. Otherwise you make a really big gap and that's no good. So please just keep that in mind, so that all our teams are doing the same, and if we need a flyer to move from level 1 up to level 2, they already know how to do it exactly the same way. Yep. So these are just random points that I'm going through. Hips and twist, major thing to watch for. So many teams get caught out for it. If you're going to fake your full ups, you can do ruby slipper grip, whatever, that's fine. Just make sure you do it well. So watch where their hips are twisting from the bottom of the dip. It's not the start. If they start and they dip down and they've already turned a quarter, it's from the bottom of the dip. That's where it's taken. So just really, really watch that. Cynical definitely got caught out for that at Nationals and learned the hard way, even though we bug them about it a lot. That's okay. Yeah, where to get information. So this, very, very easy to find. There are a few, these two are not relevant to us. And deduction system, it's not super important, but just avoid it, basically. Don't get deductions. Easy. Don't need to worry about how much they're worth. This one is just basically a quantity breakdown. So quite good if you're trying to figure out where you need to spend your time, because you'll see things like tosses are worth almost as much as your whole pyramid. So keep that in mind when you're allocating your time at training. Jumps worth exactly the same amount as your tumble, so keep that in mind as well. Cool. Rules. So rules are not as easy to find now, which is really annoying, but that's okay. Bianca has kindly put a link to the rules for us so that we can all have them, because they like to make them hard to find. So here it is. It's on Slack. Beautiful rules. Read this over and over and over. It'll probably change again. And yep, when you're reading the rules, it's really important to read the definition, because things are just, it's so complicated that what you think it means does not actually what it means. So you need to go and check the definition, especially, what better hurry up? Spotter. You'd think a spotter is simple, but this is how much is involved in what a spotter has to be. Okay, there's a huge deduction if you forget one of these points. But once you know what it is, it's pretty simple. So just make sure you're really familiar with that. All of that. Rules. If there's any questions about rules, we can query it. We can email IASF and they should let us know. Yeah, so just things that I've noticed is just being picky for all age groups about technique. Things like heel stretches, where they should be, body positions, technique, bases, not squatting, just tiny little things. So much easier if you just pick at them from the start and just don't let them become habits. It's very frustrating later on. A few more things. Pyramid. If we go here, nope, here, and we look at pyramid difficulty. 4 different level appropriate skills, 2 structures performed by most of the team. So the wording of this has changed. It's not transitions, it's skills, which is much simpler. So structures are like the picture moments where everyone sort of stops and, you know, hitches on or whatever. And then the skills is how you get there and how you get down. In some circumstances, a skill can also be a structure and a structure can also be a skill, but best to assume it's not and treat them separately so that you've kind of covered all your bases. Again, you'd want to have more than 4 just to make sure if one goes missing, you know, if one gets messed up, you're not in the mid-range, you're still in the high range. Hurry up, because I've only got 15 minutes on this thing. Tumble. So, a couple questions about standing tumble and running tumble and the difference. So most of the teams perform a level appropriate pass, which must be synchronized from the initiation of the pass. So that means that, you know, obviously synchronized. It can't be cumulative. It has to be done as a group. Plus, majority of the team forms an additional level appropriate pass. But this part can be cumulative. So you can have one person doing it 15 times, but obviously that's not going to look very good. And I feel like our teams are pretty strong in tumble, so we should ideally be able to do 2 synchronized sections. Oh no, my mouse died. Oh. Yeah, that's all good. So now we're looking at running tumbling. See, majority of the team performs, most of the team performs a level appropriate pass. Pretty simple. That one. They don't need to be performed at the same time, so that means it can be cumulative. So if one person tumbles twice, that counts twice. Yeah, pretty simple there. Just remember that things with a jump in between it break up a tumble. So if you do, what's an example? Round off back tuck, T-jump, half turn, round off back tuck, or something like that, it's not making it a more difficult pass, it's making it 2 passes. But just keep that in mind with choreography, whether you need that to be a high scoring pass, because that will determine where you get in the ranges, or if it's important for your choreography or whatever. But just remember that. Okay, now some things that have changed last year that I just want to point out and make sure everyone's aware of, hopefully you all are, is, so it's toss difficulty and jump difficulty is, it's a flat score. So if we look at tosses, majority of the team performs a level appropriate toss, rippled or synchronized. See how that's 5.0, and then when you compare to say stunt difficulty, that's a range. So you do those skills there needed, and you're going to be put somewhere in that range depending on what the judge thinks, and the difficulty drivers that you have. But with tosses, you do the tosses that you need depending on the numbers, you get a 5.0, full stop. So pretty much you don't need to add that extra flashy toss in like you used to have at the back of tumble. yeah, you really don't need minimal. The reasoning for that is because apparently statistically the most injuries that were occurring were from tosses. So they've taken away the push for difficulty and they're just pushing for technique, because that is still a range. So there's still a lot of variety of where you can score. So basically you just want to do whatever tosses you can do the nicest. You can still use them in other areas to add to your routine, but don't add that extra one in if it's going to bring your technique down. And same thing for jumps. So most of the team performs 3 connected advanced jumps or 2 connected advanced jumps plus 1 advanced jump. Must be synchronized. So your whole team doesn't need to doesn't need to jump, which is great. Can really help with your timing and transitions, like thinking, for example, Arcanine last year had one person not jump and they just made their way to the corner, and as soon as jumps were over, they tumbled. So there was no downtime, which is really strategic way to do it. So it really makes the most sense to do 2 plus 1 because you get a break, easier to keep in time, things like that. And it's the same thing. You do that, get 5 points, full stop. Doesn't matter if you're spinning around in your jumps or, you know, what you do. It just has to be, if you look under here, it can't be a spread eagle, which I believe is a star jump, or a tuck jump. Pike, right, left hurdles, front or side, toe touch. Yeah, and it all has to be at the same time. And then for minis, so Torchic, 3 advanced jumps, but don't need to be connected. So a flat score makes 0 sense to connect it. Do them separately. Technique, still big range. So yeah, so just keep that in mind. Just be smart. There's no need to go above and beyond because you're not going to get rewarded for it. Okay. The only exception would be if it somehow adds to this, so your overall. So if it adds to that, that's great, and it doesn't take away from your technique. You know, you could do that if you wanted, but it's not going to affect your jumps or your tosses score. So overall, this is something that kind of gets neglected a bit, and a lot of people seem to think it's just dance. It's not. It's performance, so you know how you show off appropriate athletic impression throughout the routine. So I think that's pretty vague, but I guess not being inappropriate and not like overly sort of fierce and, you know, creepy winks and all of that. We don't need any of that. Just smile. High energy, excitement. Something it doesn't say there is confidence that really adds to that. So you can tell when you're judging if a team doesn't or does know their routine. That's a major thing that overall judges write a lot, is know your routine. So you can tell. Yeah, and genuine enthusiasm. So creepy smiles, blowing kisses, crap like that. No. So in this one, routine composition. This is basically how lazy the coach is when choreographing. You can tell so easily when you look at a routine if people and the transitions is just a disaster, or if it's really well thought out and they go from one thing, take a couple steps into the next thing, and you don't even realize there's a transition. Or when you watch it and you're like, oh my gosh, I hope they survive, type of thing. Okay, that's basically what it is. Yeah, how lazy or how smart is the coach? So it's up to you, really. Obviously, if they walk clean, there's lots of things you can make the team do to enhance that, but yeah, a huge portion of that does come down to choreography being thoughtful. Just a couple of extra things when you scroll down. There's just a few general notes. So have a read through that explanation of the definitions. These are very important things. Difficulty drivers. Just important to keep in mind. Pace, synchronization, things like that. What the judges are looking for. Things like arm motions, all of that stuff is not a difficulty driver. So it says, top person, but that's body position, stuff like that. It's not, all those weak rump things that people keep doing. It's none of that. Cool. Okay, so I think that is pretty much everything I have listed. If you go here, this document, you can scroll down and it's got a lot of good examples to get you started, especially for pyramid, which is somewhere here. Lots of ideas. Yeah, but don't just take basic things out of that. You want to add some creativity to it. Keep that in mind, and yeah, I think that's everything. So sorry for boring you for so long. Hopefully this is helpful. And if you have any questions, just maybe comment it so that everyone can see and I can answer it. Okay, goodbye.